911, what's your emergency?
I have a student at high school. He's suicidal, and he says he's going to shoot up the school tomorrow.
Sir, where is he right now?
My name is Janella. I'm from Fort Pierce, Florida. My son was 13 years old when he was Baker acted. Jesse's very creative, very determined. He's the type of kid who he wants a role model in his life, and he's the type of person who is a follower and at the same time trying to be a leader. Jesse had written a creative allegory that seemed to be disturbing for his teacher. And they thought that his story, being as creative as it was a horror story. The dean at the time told me that she thought that Jesse was writing about himself. When she, emailed me, she said, I think Jesse needs some help. He's writing about himself, I think, in this story. He wrote a very disturbing story.
She was talking to my mom about it, or saying, he has problems, and the story was supposed to be me, but it's not, to be honest. The story was based off of a movie, actually, named Coraline, if you've seen it. I've kind of based it off of that, but mixing in my own adaptions.
So when I did read it, I saw it was about a girl and not a boy. And it was about somebody who had schizophrenia. And I'm like, how is this even related to Jesse whatsoever? And it's a creative story. It was a creative class. It was for a project. Why is she saying that he needs help? A new teacher or a new pastor in the school came in and questioned him. And he asked him, do you know why we're afraid? So Jesse told him, well, because you think I'm crazy, I'm going to come in here with a gun and a knife tomorrow and slit everybody's throat and shoot people up.
A few of the most important questions, they say, do you have any thoughts of hurting yourself? I say no. Have you ever had any thoughts of hurting other people? I say yes, because as a kid, there's at least one day in time, there's this one person that's bullying you and you want to hurt them back. That's what I think they meant.
The principal of the school said to the police department that we have a suicidal student here who's threatening to come to school tomorrow with a gun and a knife and shoot people and harm the kids and the staff. So from there, the Baker Act occurred. So I dropped everything, went to get him. He's in handcuffs, standing on the side of the school with 2 police officers, with Pastor Jason and Coach Mark. And I asked the police officer, what happened? Why is he in handcuffs? We're going to Baker Act him. He threatened suicide, and he threatened to harm some of the students in the school. Wow. I was like, okay, so Jesse, tell me what happened. So Jesse tells me the story, the whole story that I just told you. And I'm listening for the suicide part, and I don't hear it. So after 5 minutes of listening to the story, I'm like, where's the suicidal part? So I turned to the pastor, Jason, who I thought had called the police, and I said, so why is he being Baker acted? Why did you call the police? Because I don't hear any suicide or threats of suicide. He said that I asked him if you know why we're afraid, and he said because we think that he's going to come to school with a gun and a knife tomorrow and slit people's throat, and he did this with his hand. So I turned to the police officer and I said, but he's only repeating what he thought they were thinking of him. So why is he being Baker acted? So then the police officer then changed his story and said, well, he said he's going to hurt somebody. I asked him if he ever felt like hurting somebody, and he said yes, he felt like hurting somebody before. So I don't know the law in Florida or the law that well, but I didn't know if you ever said that you felt like you wanted to hurt somebody or that you could get taken away, because I think the whole world would be arrested if that's the case. You're taking away my rights from me because I'm there and I'm saying there's nothing wrong with him and he's fine. He can come with me. He's not suicidal. And you're going to just take my son away from me just like that, based on a lie.
I'm Lori. We're from Ocala, Florida. My daughter was 15 when her school Baker acted her. Faith is a very special kid. She is very sensitive and caring. She's the first kid that wants to help somebody if they're hurt or upset. She's a leader. Kids seem to flock to her. She's got some sort of a presence that just makes her just special. She's very smart, but she's not able to show how smart she is. So in school, she tends to have a lot of extra help and gets bullied quite a bit because people think she should go faster than she can. She struggled a lot through elementary school, and when she went to middle school, she continued that struggle. She just seemed to spiral into some sort of a depression. She'd been struggling with depression anyway, and her doctor had put her on an antidepressant that didn't seem to help, seemed to make her worse. She was so upset, she was so depressed. She started cutting. And, of course, she immediately told me that she did it, and I immediately called the doctor, took her to the doctor. And then the next thing I did was call the school. I wanted to be completely open and honest with them.
Well, it kind of all started at school, and I was going through, a lot, with just being in middle school and having all this stress from feeling like I needed to be perfect like my older sister or like my brother, because all the teachers liked them, and so it was really stressful. A few weeks later was going to be grad bash where all the 8th graders were going to this thing, and I was like, the reason I'm not going is I'm not smart enough to get my grades up to go. So I was like, I'm doing something wrong, and so I guess I found it as a punishment, and so I ended up cutting one night. Then the day before grad bash came, and it got really bad, and I had cuts all the way up to here. And then I got to lunch, and during lunch, I got called out by the principal, and so that was a big deal. Everyone looked over there, and they're like, why is Faith getting in trouble? Because I don't get in trouble. I'm actually kind of good at school. And so she made me show her my arm, and then she got the deputy to go up there, and he told me, he was talking to me about it and why I was doing it. And he's like, well, I'm gonna have to Baker Act you, and I knew what it meant. So I started freaking out. I had a panic attack and I couldn't breathe. And then to make it worse, whenever they left, they're bringing me, they put me in a cop car, which was it made my panic attack worse. And that was probably one of the most traumatizing things ever.
He called me, the deputy called me and told me that he had her in his office. And he said, well, we're gonna have to Baker Act her. And I said, well, can I just come and get her and take her to her doctor? And he said, no. It's beyond that now. We have to take her. I was scared and angry. I couldn't understand why I couldn't go and pick my own child up and take her to her doctor who knew her and understood what she was going through. I didn't think it was right that they could just take her from the school.
They brought me back to this big room. It was terrifying. It looked like a jail. The doors were see-through, the walls were glass, and there were kids who were banging on the walls. They weren't even that, they weren't crazy. They were just trying to scare the new people who were going in. But at the time, I was terrified.
I had told her right before we left, I'm going to sign the papers, I'm getting you out of here today. And I couldn't. She was there for 3 days, from Friday afternoon until Monday morning.
I finally started realizing this shouldn't have happened. This made no sense at all.
My name is Carmen Bland, and I am an attorney here in Florida. I am a former assistant public defender where I had a rotation within the office where I handled or defended Baker Act clients. You can go to school and be sitting in science class, and next thing you know, you're being carted off to a secure facility in the back of a police car. This is very, very jarring. And when I hear about these kinds of things happening, it just tugs at my heart for number one. And it bothers me to the point where I need to step in and help these people out in some way. You gotta know what you're doing when you pick up that phone, and it can do way more harm than good. And it's not even humanitarian, it's cruel is what it is. It's plain cruel.
I would like the legislators, the senators, and the House reps to know that when a child is Baker Acted, at least when my child was Baker Acted, they took her from school, they humiliated her. They took her personal items, her bra, her shoelaces, she wasn't allowed to have a belt. She was her medications were taken away from her, not just psychiatric medications. They took her asthma medication away from her. They forced her to eat foods that because of some medical issues she's not supposed to eat, but if she didn't eat, she wouldn't be able to go home. And she wasn't even allowed to have her Bible. And I asked if she could have her Bible. They said no.
I don't think it's any place for a teacher or any administrator or anybody who has your child to say, you're crazy. You're putting a label on a child that's developing and going through stages.
Future is not just worth 20 minutes of your time. Future is not worth just your job. Each child that you mess with, or even a young adult, they still have a future to go to, and once you mess with, like, put a criminal record on them, their future is done. And people can Baker Act you for anything. It's based on their opinion on how they see you. If they see you as crazy, bam, you're done. You're done. That's it. And their future is ruined.
Baker acting is not a solution. You can have a child, I'm a preschool teacher. When a child throws a tantrum, we don't call the police. This law has to be eliminated. They cannot do this to children.
Don't Baker Act a 5-year-old kid. Don't Baker Act 10-year-olds. Don't Baker Act teens that have a future. The events in their life, whether it be good or bad, can help them change the world for better or worse. But what your job's supposed to do is make it for better.
I would like to see the Baker Act definitely taken off the books as far as children are concerned.
Faith still struggles with her learning disabilities. She tried out for cheerleader at the end of the year, and she made the squad. So she was going to be a cheerleader this year at the high school. But when she started going back to school, she started getting afraid again. She couldn't seem to function. She would wake up at night with panic attacks at 2:30 in the morning and never get back to sleep. They didn't help her at all. All they did was make all her problems worse.
Even if it's just a friend or something, just being someone who can listen is better than most things. If I would have had someone just to talk to at the time, instead of being Baker Acted, I probably would have been like completely done. I would have never had these problems again.
Everyone has their individual rights. Everyone has their individual ability to prosper. Not only that, but you have to give them the chance to prosper, and you have to show them how they can do it.
I just want to say that I'm not here because I wanted to be here. I'm here because Faith wanted me to be here. She wanted me to make sure that this didn't happen to any other kid. She wants to change the law so that the kids are safe. We do want kids to be safe. We want them to be safe, and we want them to be able to heal. This is not the way that's going to happen. They need to make sure that they're actually helping and not making the problem worse.
I would like to say that I'm not the only one who feels this way. A lot of parents are going through this. I came here from New York, didn't even know this law existed. If I'd known this law existed, I would not have come to Florida. I would have chosen another state to raise my children in.